So to start off today's deep dive, I want you to picture a city called Nogales. It's cut straight down the middle by a fence.
Right, just literally sliced in half.
Exactly. And if you stand on the north side, you're in Nogales, Arizona. You've got paved roads. Most teenagers are graduating high school, and the average household brings in, roughly $30,000 a year.
And older folks there have access to Medicare and a solid healthcare system.
Right. But if you take just 3 steps south through a checkpoint, you're in Nogales, Sonora, in Mexico. And it is just a completely different universe.
Oh, completely.
I mean, infant mortality spikes. Incomes just plummet to like 1/3 of what they are in the north. The roads are struggling. And crime and political corruption are just everyday realities you have to navigate just to survive.
And what makes this contrast so incredibly jarring is that everything natural about these two places is completely identical.
Right, because they're literally right next to each other.
Exactly. They have the exact same geography, the same arid climate. I mean, the disease environment is exactly the same, right?
Yeah.
Germs do not stop at border checkpoints.
No, they definitely don't.
And the people living there, they share the same ancestors, the same diets, the same cultural roots.
It's wild. It's honestly like 2 groups of people are playing a massive game of Monopoly, but on the south side of the table, the rules say the banker can just arbitrarily seize your property. Or, demand a bribe every time you roll the dice.
Right, which totally changes how you play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Naturally, the players on that side just stop trying to build hotels. They just try to survive the game. So what is this invisible wall keeping one side rich and the other side poor? That is the mission of our deep dive today.
Yeah, it's a huge question.
We are unpacking the core insights from this groundbreaking book, Why Nations Fail, to kind of cut through the noise and figure out the true origins of global wealth and poverty.
And to solve the mystery of Nogales, we really have to start by clearing the board. We need to throw out the usual suspects that people generally rely on to explain why some countries are wealthy and others are struggling.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because usually when people try to explain global inequality, the most famous suspect has to be geography, right?
Oh, absolutely.
The idea that countries in hot tropical climates are just naturally poorer, like maybe the extreme heat makes people less productive, or the soil quality just can't sustain massive agriculture.
Right, yeah.
And this idea goes all the way back to, the French philosopher Montesquieu. And you even see it in modern bestsellers by thinkers like Jared Diamond, who basically argues that the layout of the continents determined who got rich.
Yeah, and it is a very comforting popular narrative.
Yeah.
But it instantly falls apart when you actually look at the historical record.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it. If geography is destiny, then the poorest places today should have always been the poorest places, right?
I guess that makes sense, yeah.
But before Europeans arrived in the Americas, the tropical regions were vastly wealthier and just more complex than the temperate zones.
Wait, really?
Yeah. The Aztec and Inca empires, they were located right in those supposedly unproductive tropics. And they had massive cities, paved roads, intricate taxation, and, highly centralized governments.
Wow.
Meanwhile, the tribes living in the temperate, highly fertile zones, what is now the United States and Canada, they were mostly nomadic, less stratified societies.
So the climate and the geography didn't change over 500 years, but the wealth completely flipped.
Precisely. It's what economists call a reversal of fortune.
Okay, but wait, let me push back a bit on this. Isn't it just an undeniable fact that tropical diseases like malaria absolutely devastate modern economies in places like sub-Saharan Africa?
Well, yes, they do cause massive harm.
Right, so how can a country build wealth when half its workforce is constantly battling a fever? Doesn't that prove the geography thing?
What's fascinating here is that we often confuse the symptom with the root cause. Disease isn't the root cause of poverty. It's actually a consequence of it.
Oh, okay, you're gonna have to explain that one.
Think about 19th century England during the Industrial Revolution. It was a complete health disaster. London was a literal cesspool of cholera and disease with a terrible life expectancy.
Oh, right, the smog in the Thames being basically an open sewer.
Exactly. But as the country became wealthier, and crucially, as the government actually had the political incentive to respond to its citizens, they invested in massive public works, clean water systems, sewage treatment, public health infrastructure.
Ah, I see.
Nogales, Arizona isn't healthier than Nogales, Sonora because it has different germs. It's healthier because its government functions well enough to provide sanitary conditions and healthcare.
Okay, that makes total sense. You basically buy your way out of the disease environment.
Exactly.
So if it's not geography and it's not disease, what about the leaders? The ignorance hypothesis.
Oh, this is a very common one.
Do poor countries just happen to have leaders who genuinely don't understand economics? Like, they just need some Ivy League consultant to parachute in and give them the right spreadsheet?
That theory sounds highly plausible, right up until you actually analyze the decisions of these leaders. A brilliant historical example is Ghana, right after its independence.
Okay, what happened there?
The leader, Kwame Nkrumah, decided to build a massive state-of-the-art footwear factory. But he built it hundreds of miles away from the northern region where all the leather was produced.
Okay.
And he also built it hundreds of miles away from the major southern markets where the shoes would actually be sold.
That sounds like catastrophically bad business advice.
It is terrible economics.
Yeah.
But Nkrumah wasn't ignorant. He had top-tier economic advisors surrounding him, including a future Nobel laureate.
Wait, really? So why do it?
He didn't build the factory in the middle of nowhere by mistake. He built it there because it brought him crucial political support from an ethnic group in that specific region.
Oh, wow. So it was political patronage.
Exactly. The policies that keep nations poor aren't accidental mistakes. They are highly calculated moves designed to keep the current leaders in power.
So if the poverty of a nation isn't caused by the land, the climate, the culture, or the sheer ignorance of the leaders, what is the real driver?
It all comes down to the rules of the game, the institutions. A nation's destiny is determined by whether its economic and political institutions are inclusive or extractive.
Okay, I want to make sure you, the listener, really get this, because this is kind of the entire key to the puzzle. Can you define how those two systems actually operate?
Sure. So inclusive institutions are systems that create a level playing field. Mechanistically, they secure private property, uphold an unbiased system of law, and most importantly, they encourage broad participation from the masses.
So people can actually join the economy safely.
Right. Anyone is free to choose their career, start a business, and actually keep the rewards of their own ideas. The United States and South Korea are prime examples of this.
And extractive institutions.
Extractive institutions, on the other hand, are engineered by a narrow elite to extract wealth and resources from the vast majority of society, funneling it directly into the pockets of that elite. North Korea or colonial Latin America are the classic blueprints for this.
The Korea example is so heartbreaking, and it completely strips away all the academic jargon. There's this incredibly emotional story from the book about a man named Hwang Kyung-won and his brother. They were separated at the 38th parallel during the Korean War in 1950.
Yes, and they aren't reunited until half a century later in the year 2000 in Seoul.
Which is just a crazy long time.
It is. Now, Wang, who ended up in the South, became a pharmacist. He's healthy, he drives a car, he's accumulated a solid, middle-class life.
Right.
His brother ended up in the North and actually became a doctor. He's technically part of the educated elite. But when they finally meet, the brother from the North is terrifyingly thin. He isn't on a phone, his coat is threadbare, and he admits to Wang that the coat is just borrowed from the government, specifically for the trip.
Man. And the most crushing part is when Hwang tries to slip his brother some money to take back. His brother refuses and says, "If I go back with money, the government will just say, 'Give that to us.'"
It perfectly illustrates the mechanism of extractive institutions. In the North, there is no private property. The state dictates everything.
So there's just no point in trying.
Exactly. There is absolutely no incentive to innovate, to work a little harder, or to build a business, because the rules dictate that any surplus you create will simply be confiscated by the state.
So what does this all mean? Going back to the earlier thought, extractive institutions are that rigged casino. The houses set up the rules so they mathematically always win.
Yep, the house always wins.
And eventually, the players realize they can't beat the house, so they stop trying to win big. They just do the bare minimum to stay at the table. But inclusive institutions are more like a community co-op. Everyone gets a vote, the rules are transparent, and you actually get to keep a share of whatever crop you grow.
Right.
So naturally, everyone is incentivized to wake up early and plant more seeds.
That is the perfect way to look at it. The underlying incentives dictate the everyday behavior of the entire society.
But if extractive institutions are this terrible for the overall economy, I'm stuck on why anyone would build them in the first place. Like, Was the Spanish blueprint in the Americas just short-sighted greed, or was it actually a highly functional system for the elites?
Oh, it was incredibly functional for the elites. Let's look at that Spanish blueprint. In 1532, the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro arrives at Cajamarca in Peru and encounters the Inca Emperor Atahualpa.
Okay, setting the scene.
The Spanish strategy was brilliantly ruthless. Capture the centralized leader, demand a massive ransom filling literal rooms with gold and silver, and then completely hijack the existing systems of taxation and forced labor.
Wait, I've heard the term encomienda in high school history, but how did that actually work on a mechanical level? Was it just slavery by another name?
Essentially, yes. An encomienda wasn't a grant of land. It was a grant of indigenous human beings.
What?
The Spanish crown gave an elite colonist the absolute monopoly over the labor of a specific group of natives. They combined this with the mita, which was a forced labor draft.
So people were just drafted to work.
Right. They forcibly relocated hundreds of thousands of indigenous people, marching them away from their families to work in the massive silver mines at Potosi under horrific, toxic conditions.
That's horrifying.
The entire society was methodically engineered to keep living standards for the masses at a bare subsistence level, so that every ounce of surplus wealth flowed directly back to the Spanish elite.
Okay, so the Spanish system was pure, unapologetic extraction. But what about the English? We like to think they arrived in North America with these, noble ideals of democracy, freedom, and town halls.
Not at all. That's a huge myth.
Really?
Yeah. When the Virginia Company, which was essentially a ruthless for-profit corporation, landed at Jamestown in 1607, their business plan was a direct copy-paste of the Spanish model. They absolutely wanted to capture the local chief, whynationsfail, coerce his people into mining gold, and just get rich quick.
But whynationsfail didn't fall for it. He realized what they were doing and just cut off their food supply, basically leaving the English to starve.
Exactly. So the English elites panicked. Since they couldn't enslave the locals, they decided to enslave their own settlers.
Their own people.
Yeah. They instituted a brutal system of martial law called the laws divine, moral, and martial. The settlers were forced to live in barracks, work in gangs, and the punishment for stealing a single ear of corn was death.
It's crazy to think the first English colony was essentially a penal camp, but it failed miserably. Why?
Because of the geography and the low population density. In Peru, the Spanish had a dense captive population. In Virginia, there was no gold, and the land was a vast, open, seemingly endless frontier.
Oh, I see.
If you pushed a settler too hard, they didn't just accept it. They ran away into the woods to live with the native tribes or strike out on their own. The elites physically could not hold them captive.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the English elites realized that coercion was impossible. You can't run a rigged casino if everyone can just walk out the door.
Exactly.
To get the settlers to work and make the colony economically viable, they were forced to offer incentives.
Precisely. So in 1618, the Virginia Company pivots. They introduced the headright system, giving each male settler 50 acres of land.
A huge shift.
And the next year, they created General Assembly, giving the settlers a political voice. They accidentally birthed inclusive institutions, not out of noble philosophy, but because it was the only mathematical way the colony could survive.
The English literally had to bribe their own people with freedom. And those two historical blueprints set the trajectory for the next 400 years.
They really did.
It explains why, in the modern era, someone like the Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim made his massive fortune largely through political monopolies and exploiting legal loopholes, what they call imperos in Mexico.
Right, he bought the state telecommunications monopoly. Yeah. The system was designed to protect elite insiders.
Contrast that with U.S. billionaires like Thomas Edison or Bill Gates, who made their fortunes through patents, technological innovation, and brutally competing in an open market.
The divergence is profound. But this raises a fascinating paradox. If the inclusive English model so clearly leads to more innovation, more wealth, and a more dynamic society, why wouldn't every leader, even a dictator, just switch their country's rules to be inclusive?
Right. That is the million-dollar question. If I'm a ruthless dictator, I still want my country to invent the next microchip. I want a bigger economic pie so I can take a bigger slice.
You would assume that's the rational choice. But to understand why they don't, we have to look at a concept called creative destruction, coined by the economist Joseph Schumpeter.
Creative destruction.
Yeah. Innovation and economic growth inevitably destroy the old ways of doing things. New technologies replace old industries. New upstart businesses bankrupt established monopolies.
Okay, making sense so far.
And crucially, this economic disruption almost always threatens the political power of the existing elites.
Ah, so to make the country richer, the dictator actually has to give up control.
Exactly. We see this fear of creative destruction over and over throughout history. During the Industrial Revolution, you had the famous Luddites in England, artisans who literally burned down the house of James Hargreaves, the inventor of the spinning jenny, because his machine threatened their livelihoods.
But the Luddites were just workers. They didn't have the political power to stop the Industrial Revolution in England.
Right, they failed.
Yeah.
But look at Russia and Austria-Hungary during that exact same period. The absolute monarchs and the powerful landed aristocracies there looked at factories and railways, and they didn't see progress. They saw a terrifying threat.
A threat to their power.
Yes. If you build railways, peasants can move away from the feudal estates. If you build factories, those peasants gather in cities where they can share ideas and organize politically.
Wow.
So the Russian czars and the Austro-Hungarian emperors actively blocked industrialization. They happily stalled their own country's economic growth to protect their feudal grip on power.
The story that really chilled me regarding this was the Kingdom of Congo in Central Africa centuries ago. The Europeans arrive and introduce the Congolese king to the wheel and the plow.
Yep.
These are revolutionary technologies that would immediately explode agricultural output, but the king completely ignores them. Why? Because improving agriculture for his people didn't benefit him. He already arbitrarily taxed whatever they grew, but you know what European technology he did adopt eagerly?
The musket.
Yes, the technology of violence. He used those guns to capture his own citizens and sell them into slavery in exchange for European luxury goods. Here's where it gets really interesting. The devastating poverty of the Congo wasn't an accident or a lack of understanding.
No, not at all.
The elites actively suppressed the economic development of their own people because empowering the masses with inclusive markets would have destroyed the elites' absolute power and their lucrative slave trading monopoly.
It is the ultimate tragedy of extractive institutions. The elites are fully rational. They're just optimizing for their own power, even if it means deliberately impoverishing millions of their own citizens.
Okay, but if elites are always fighting progress to protect their power, how did inclusive institutions ever manage to break through? Like, how did anyone ever escape the trap?
The answer lies in the butterfly effect of history. The underlying theory points to two forces: institutional drift and critical junctures.
Okay, break that down.
Sure, no two societies are exactly alike. Over centuries, small, almost unnoticeable institutional differences drift apart. But when a massive historical shock hits a critical juncture, those tiny differences are magnified, sending societies down completely opposite paths.
The Black Death is the perfect example of this. In 1346, the bubonic plague hits Europe and wipes out roughly half the population.
A massive shock.
Suddenly, labor becomes incredibly scarce. The demand for workers skyrockets. But the outcomes in Western Europe and Eastern Europe were totally different.
Let's look at the mechanisms of why. In Western Europe, particularly in England, peasants had drifted toward having slightly more organization and autonomy over the previous century.
Right.
When the plague hit and their labor became wildly valuable, the peasants leveraged that shortage. They basically formed early labor movements, demanding an end to unpaid labor and feudal dues.
And the government just let them?
No. The English government tried to stop them by passing laws to freeze wages, but the peasants revolted and won. Feudalism crumbled, and an inclusive labor market began to form.
But in Eastern Europe, the lords were just slightly more consolidated, they had bigger land holdings, and the towns were weaker.
Right. So when the exact same plague caused the exact same labor shortage in the East, the lords didn't concede to market forces. Instead, they colluded.
They teamed up against the peasants.
Yes. They formed a cartel to freeze wages and restrict movement. They used the crisis to force the peasants into even stricter subjugation, creating what is historically known as the Second Serfdom.
That is wild.
The exact same shock the plague created a path to freedom in the West and intense, brutal slavery in the East, all because of tiny pre-existing differences in how much leverage the peasants had.
And the timeline of history is just full of these incredibly contingent, lucky moments. Look at the Spanish Armada in 1588.
Oh, perfect example.
The Spanish sent this massive, invincible fleet to crush the English Navy. If Spain wins that battle, they completely monopolize the Atlantic trade, and the extractive Spanish blueprint takes over the entire globe.
Without a doubt.
But the Spanish had unusually bad weather and a commander who made terrible strategic mistakes, and against all odds, the English won.
This raises an important question. What happened structurally because of that unlikely English victory? Well, the Atlantic Ocean suddenly opens up. English merchants, acting independently of the crown, start crossing the ocean and getting incredibly wealthy from global trade.
Wait, so why did the merchants getting rich inevitably lead to the Glorious Revolution of 1688? Kings had rich subjects before. Why did this specific wealth spark a political revolution?
Because this new wealth was generated entirely outside the king's control. Suddenly, you have a massive class of independent merchants who can fund their own private militias, buy influence, and support political factions.
Oh, so they had real leverage.
Yes. They realized that if the king still held absolute, unchecked power, he could just wake up tomorrow and seize their new wealth or grant a monopoly to his friends.
Which kings definitely love to do.
Exactly. So they used their new economic leverage to buy themselves a new political system. They overthrew the king and demanded Parliament have the power. They forced the creation of inclusive property rights specifically to protect their money. And that political security is exactly what allowed the Industrial Revolution to take off in England first.
It's mind-blowing when you trace the dominoes. History isn't preordained at all. It literally hangs by a thread. A change in the wind direction in 1588 and the modern industrialized world as we know it might not exist.
It's a powerful reminder that our inclusive institutions are not inevitable, and they aren't permanent. They are the result of constant conflict, historical luck, and continuous effort.
Which brings us back to you, the listener. If you want to be truly well-informed about why the world has such staggering inequality, why Nogales, Arizona, looks so different from Nogales, Sonora, you don't need to get bogged down in complicated theories about latitude or soil quality or the supposed work ethic of different cultures.
You really don't.
You just need to look at the rules of the game. Are the institutions inclusive, meaning they reward your ideas, protect your property, and let you participate? Or are they extractive, meaning they operate like a rigged casino, meticulously designed to funnel wealth to a narrow elite?
Understanding that mechanical distinction is the absolute key to understanding not just the past, but the trajectory of nations today.
Exactly. And I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. We've just seen how historical elites, kings, aristocrats, and dictators fought tooth and nail against things like the printing press, the factory, and the railroad.
Because they were terrified.
Right. They feared creative destruction would rob them of their monopolies and their absolute power. Well, look around us today. We are living through massive, unprecedented technological shifts. Artificial intelligence, decentralized finance, radical automation.
Huge changes.
If our current prosperity relies entirely on keeping our institutions inclusive, open, and competitive, well, you have to wonder, as this next massive wave of wildly disruptive technology arrives, will today's powerful elites step back and allow that creative destruction to happen? Or will they try to change the rules of the game, turn on that invisible wall, and pull up the ladder to protect themselves?